Today, I'm going to give you the 7 toughest lessons I had to learn building a $50 million business. If I could go back 10 years and give my younger self the best business advice I know today, this is that video. By the way, my name is Seth Keeping It Real, and I want you to know I do not throw around the $50 million number lightly. It is based on 4 different assessment tools that calculated our company's market value. Lesson number 1, you will let problems destroy you or motivate you. Before I became an entrepreneur, I encountered 2 very tormenting problems: financial stress and corporate politics. I worked for Apple at the time, and every once in a blue moon, I would take my family to lunch. And I'll never forget one day after lunch, I hand the waitress my debit card, and she returns a few moments later with a very uncomfortable look on her face. The card got declined, something about insufficient funds? I got up, I walked my way back to the restaurant, out to my beat up minivan to get my checkbook. And for me, it was a walk of shame. And do you know who I blamed? Apple. Within months, I was $24,000 in debt. I mean, I worked for the richest company in the world, but I could not pay my own bills. And the funny thing is, the more I got angry at Apple, the economy, the government, even my own family, the worse I felt and the deeper I sank. And only a few weeks later, our only house foreclosed. Trying to follow Dave Ramsey's teachings made one thing painfully clear. I didn't make enough money to pay for my family's basic needs. I needed a mission, a dragon to slay, a chapel to build, something tangible to dig us out of this death by paycheck cycle. But what? And then one day, my wife calls me from the grocery store. She says, "Hey Seth, our debit card just got declined and I'm standing in front of a line of 15 people waiting for checkout." There is one thing worse than death, and that is living without purpose. So I was left with 2 options: either change your life or die on the inside. And then one day at Apple, I'll never forget my boss calling me in, and she said, "Look, I needed to give a verbal warning to an insubordinate employee that I was managing." So I did exactly as my boss instructed. A few days later, my boss told me to meet with her over video chat. So I joined the meeting, and I was surprised to see my direct report, the same one I had applied the discipline to, in the meeting as well. And in that meeting, my boss berated me right there in front of my direct report for doing exactly as I had been told. I felt so humiliated that I remember just nodding numbly, waiting for the meeting to end. The meeting finished, and my wife was standing right over here off camera because I worked from home. And I remember turning to her and saying, "That's it. I am done. I am building a new life for our family." And I grabbed a paint can, and I had just enough room on the wall to spray paint on the wall in front of my desk, "Live like no one else." On that day, I set my heart on becoming an entrepreneur. And weeks later, I started my first online business selling vapes. Now, I could have let the financial stress and the corporate politics push me into self-medicating addictive behaviors. But instead, I had to make a very conscious decision against gravity, against the pull, against the discouragement, against what felt natural. I will use the pain to motivate me instead of destroying me. You see, the best motivator on earth is not caffeine. It is not your favorite song. It is not a stadium of screaming fans. The best motivator is pain. Lesson number 2, be willing to do what no one else is willing to do. At that time, we owned 1 car, a Honda Odyssey, for a family of 6. And the clock was ticking. Miss one more payment and that Honda would be repossessed. One day, my daughter, she showed me an ad on Craigslist. A new rideshare company had entered town called Lyft, and they were paying generous rates to new drivers. So what if I used my car to pay off my car driving for Lyft? With a full-time job at Apple and building an online vape business, this idea was not normal. But you see, if you want an extraordinary life, and if you want to build a cash flow business, there is no room for normal. Now, my idea was so abnormal that when I told my wife, KK, her immediate response was no. But you see, I wasn't asking for her permission. I was asking for her input. And in my heart, I knew what I needed to do to get where we needed to be as a family. And my new schedule was really fun. Get up, read the Bible and pray, work out, work for Apple all day, work on the vape business on lunch break and in the evening, and then drive to downtown Austin and cart drunks from bar to home until 3 a.m. As long as you measure your work ethic, your bravery, and your success based on average people around you, you will feel good about yourself, but you will never build a successful company. That is why, if you just take a statistical look at the US, the vast majority of people work for a company instead of starting a company, because building and running a company is not easy and it will take extraordinary effort, but that's how you get extraordinary results. Just today, in the last 24 hours, 13,699 new businesses were filed in the US, and some of those businesses are gunning for your exact market. And if only just 10 of them are willing to do what no one else is willing to do, do you really think you will win if you measure your grind against your buddies from college? Lesson number 3. If you're not willing to look stupid, your fear of people will eventually kill your business. I'll never forget one Uber passenger asking me what I did for a living. And I said, well, I'm an entrepreneur. And then he goes, then why do you drive for Uber? And I felt immediate embarrassment. And it took me time to start swallowing my pride and accept reality. This is my situation, and I must be willing to look stupid for now, if that is what it takes. After about 500 rides for Uber and Lyft, I paid off our car in full. But only weeks later, I fell into very deep discouragement, because my vape business was making just enough money to pay our electric bill. I had no extra time, I had zero business experience, and my business was doing so poorly that if they could have, my business cards would have self-destructed from shame. One afternoon, I was buying a Starbucks drink for my wife, and following the Dave Ramsey method, I reached into the envelope to pay cash. As the Starbucks employee handed back some change, my eyes fell on a dime, and then I got this ridiculous idea. This is the smallest American coin for its value. How many times would I have to double this dime to reach $100,000? And so I grabbed a calculator. Only 20 times? I redid the math. Yes, double a dime 20 times and you have over $100,000. And suddenly, I knew what I needed to do. So I drove home and I glued that dime to the wall of my garage as a reminder. And then I walked downtown with my dime, approaching random people, shared my vision, and asked them to double my dime. And some said no, some laughed, and some said yes. And more than once, as I was walking around, I questioned my own sanity. Like, who on earth walks around doubling coins as a way of providing for their family of 6? And I had to fight that lying fear and remind myself of this vision God had planted in my heart. And every time I came home, I stuffed the money that I had raised into a little white envelope on the side of my desk. Now, I will never forget Frank, the owner of Mr. Frank's hot dog store. He too had just left the corporate world to start out on his own. He had never met me before, but he believed in what we were doing, and he doubled my dime to $400. I took my $400 home, researched the health and fitness market on eBay, and concluded that everyone on planet Earth and in every alternate universe had all decided simultaneously to sell in the health and fitness market. And with Pat Flynn's advice echoing in my head, the riches are in the niches. I clicked on the everything else eBay category, like the most unlikely category, and I happened upon funeral and cemetery. An hour later, I discovered that tiny cremation urns hanging from silver necklaces were selling like popcorn at a baseball game. I found a supplier in DH Gate. I used my $400 to purchase my first private label inventory cremation urns, asked my wife to be the model, and listed the urns on eBay. Nothing happened for days. And then one sale came in. A few days later, another sale came in. A couple weeks later, the sales were no better. Was I doing something wrong? And honestly, I felt like an idiot. And the temptation to let that feeling move me to give up and retract back into a normal, average person was so strong. But someone had told me you could sell new products on Amazon, so I kind of hesitantly decided to create a listing on Amazon for my cremation urns. And I didn't expect anything to happen. In the meantime, my wife and I stripped our house of everything we didn't need and sold it on Craigslist, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. When the products wouldn't sell, I put them in a bag and walked door to door, knocking on doors, offering them for sale to our neighbors. When Adelie, my younger daughter, needed to do a fundraiser for her school band, she joined me and we would do a double offer at each house. And I remember dreading knocking on our neighbors' doors during dinner time, but it forced me to get over my fear and learn how to sell right there on the spot. Looking back, I would exchange this hands-on training and memories with my daughter for anything. I almost forgot about my creation urn listing on Amazon until one day I got a notification from Amazon. Sold. The next day, 2 sales came in. The next day, 5. Within weeks, the cremation urns were selling 10 times a day at around $10 profit a sale. And this is when I knew we were on to something. I used all the profits to buy more inventory, and all the cash we received from turning our house into a ghost town, we used that to launch another product at Amazon. And our Amazon store began to grow. And then I launched another product and another. We were the first third-party sellers to bring cash cannons to the Amazon market. I negotiated a deal with the American suppliers, and they'd ship these cash cannons to our house in massive boxes. We'd prep them, slap on the FNSKU label, and then ship them off at UPS. Those cash cannons alone got us to over $20,000 a month at $30 to $40 profit a sale. One of our longest selling and most stable products was amber bottle kits I had designed. These kits had to be assembled, but paying a supplier to do it cut too deeply into our margins. So what I did is I get the whole family in an assembly line, and we'd assemble these kits together. Sometimes we would work until deep into the night. I remember one night walking into the room, and my son EJ's just knocked out on the couch, having worked on these kits for hours. One product we put a lot of time into designing was the cell phone mount kit. And I had a lot of hope for that product, but it completely failed. Hardly sold a single unit, but we kept going. We started making more money in a few days on Amazon than Apple paid me in a month. And through months of learning and trying and falling and getting up again, my single dime had burst through the $100,000 goal. What would have happened if I had given up the first time I felt stupid, or the 50th time when my monthly income consistently doubled what Apple paid me? I fired my boss. And to this day, I've never had a 9-to-5 job since. Lesson number 4. Until your product solves a problem that people hate, your product is not a product. My early YouTube business coaching videos were an astounding success. I gained 23 subscribers in 2 years. I mean, it was so bad I cringed when my friend Lonnie Honeycutt promoted my channel. But Lonnie's advice changed everything when he said this. He said, Seth, every time you run into a problem and figure out the solution, hit record on the video camera. And so I did. In a week, my subscribers doubled. And within 5 months, I was over 1,500 subscribers, and I had people messaging me every day asking if I would coach them. So I started offering one-to-one coaching for a fee, but this became a huge problem for me. The one-on-one coaching sessions started to eat into my day. Before I knew it, I had created the very same problem I had left at Apple. I was a slave to my business. So one night, Josiah, my son, and I drove to Dominican Joe's, one of our favorite 24/7 coffee shops in Austin, and we committed to not leaving until we had created a scalable plan for coaching clients. We ended up with so much content, we broke it into 5 individual courses.
I would probably pay $10,000 for Seth's course.
And the community that grew out of this program was something we could not have predicted. Like, I don't even have words to do it justice. That late night in October 2016, a new coaching company was born. Just One Dime. For decades, China had been the country of choice for sourcing quality products at a low price, but this also creates risk for an Amazon seller. I mean, think about it. You're sourcing from a foreign country whose language you don't speak a word of, and people can lose tens of thousands if they send money to a business on Alibaba posing as a supplier. So in 2017, Josiah and I decided to fly to China, learn how sourcing works from China's perspective, and bring back everything we learned to Just One Dime's students. In China, we met our first Chinese sourcing agent, whom we hired on the spot. And this grew into a team of supplier experts, which gave our students a very competitive advantage over their competition. Just One Dime arguably produced some of the most successful Amazon sellers in the world. Dozens of them became millionaires, some of them multi-millionaires, Wax Up brand being one of just many examples. The combined revenue of both coaches and students in the community was over 100 million of Amazon revenue a year. But our followers wanted more, so we traveled to New York, Austin, Los Angeles, Miami, even London, and put on in-person business training. And this led to us throwing our first big conference in Las Vegas called The Summit. Amazon, who had reportedly never spoken at any conference but their own for the last decade, spoke at our next big conference. But what happened next, I never could have predicted. I interviewed Robert Kiyosaki. I collaborated with Kevin O'Leary at his condo in Miami. Amazon headquarters reached out and asked to fly me to their headquarters to consult with myself and 9 other Amazon sellers. BMW reached out to consult on the opportunity for Just One Dime to sell BMW's accessory products on Amazon. Forever 21 consulted with us on ways to get their products launched on Amazon. Flying Solo invited us to feature a clothing line we had partnered with at New York Fashion Week. Just One Dime had entered a season of brand partnership opportunities at a level I had never dreamed of. But there's something here that is so easy to miss. Underneath all the glamour, it's so critical. Anyone with an IQ above room temperature could tell you that our product was not revolutionary. Creating a training is not some mind-bending invention. Then where did all this glowing success come from? One very simple concept. We solved a problem that people hated. People hated learning how to sell on Amazon on their own, so we provided that training. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, said this: great products are born from empathy for the user and a relentless focus on their problems. So don't chase the innovation, chase the itch people are desperate to scratch. And if you want to build something people need, then solve something they hate. But a storm was coming. Lesson number 5, beware of new opportunities. They can destroy your company. The year was 2020, and I'd stumbled upon a new opportunity. Little did I know that this opportunity would destroy everything I had built. In their book, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, Al Ries and Jack Trout wrote this: the most violated law in marketing is the law of line extension. Now, line extension means adding new products under an existing brand. They go on. Line extension weakens the brand and can be the beginning of its end. You see, the bigger your company is, the bigger a threat new opportunities become to your company. According to consulting firm McKinsey & Company, few companies gain revenue when they expand beyond their core product. And there are 3 primary reasons for this. Reason number 1, the new product can cannibalize your brand. Consultants call this strategic misalignment. Let's say you have a thriving business, a new product launch idea lands on your desk. Now, if you lean on the prospecting side of Myers-Briggs, you're probably thinking, well, this could boost our brand reach, it could increase our brand valuation, and potentially double our revenue. But if that product sends a message that goes against your core brand, it's going to cost you, and not just in dollars. Picture this. It's 1996 and McDonald's, the king of Happy Meals and kid-friendly vibes, decides to get fancy. So they launch the Arch Deluxe, a burger for adults with fancy ingredients and a $150 million ad blitz. One commercial even shows kids rejecting it like it was broccoli. But here's the twist. The adults didn't want it either. Why? Because McDonald's is not about fine dining. It's Happy Meals and playgrounds. So this new opportunity product collided with the McDonald's brands, and the Arch Deluxe flopped hard. This is a textbook case of what happens when you try to be something your brand never was. The second primary reason you must beware of new opportunities is the new product can drain your resources. It is impossible to add a new product to your company without also adding costs in time, money, and staff, pulling resources from your core business. And what happens when you pull too many resources from your core business? The same thing that happened when doctors in the 1700s bled out their sick patients. Starbucks tried this in Australia, but their rapid expansion with an industrialized coffee instead of the bean quality that Australians prefer led to store closures and a loss of 105 million. The third reason new opportunities can destroy your company is the new product will complicate your operations. Every time you complicate anything in business, your risk of failure spikes. No one proved this more clearly than Amazon with the Fire Phone. And this product was way outside their core. It strained their systems and ended up costing them millions. In the year 2020, a fashion company in Los Angeles asked if instead of training them on how to sell on Amazon, our company would build out the Amazon arm of their clothing line. Around the same time, an entrepreneur who won an investment on Shark Tank asked us the same thing. And then a few months later, a student of Just One Dime told us they don't have the time or expertise to build a store, but they had the capital, and since we had the experience, would we be willing to do it for them? I realized in that moment that a door had just swung open. If we could teach clients to sell on Amazon, why couldn't we build the entire business for them? Now, if I could go back today and tell the 42-year-old Seth what the 47-year-old Seth knows, history would be different. But what made it even more convincing is COVID was fueling third-party Amazon sales to grow at nearly double the previous year's pace. So after much deliberation, I set Just One Dime's mission to launch a done-for-you service that builds Amazon businesses for clients. I went live on YouTube announcing the done-for-you service, and a flood of applicants came knocking. In total, 7,429 clients applied, and 13% of those became clients of our done-for-you service. At first, these clients' stores went from zero to booming in record time. I mean, some clients' products sold out in 25 days. One client did $65,000 in 8 months. Another client did $32,000 in 2 months. Another $1,000 in a single day, only 3 days after launch. But then something happened in China. Surging online spending began to drive up overseas demand. And the increased overseas demand raised the cost of raw materials, which raises the cost of products. And it wasn't just products. Shipping costs skyrocketed. For example, a shipment for a single shipping container would go from $3,000 to $30,000. And shipments were delayed not by weeks, but months. Due to COVID outbreaks, the Chinese government shut down suppliers manufacturing our products. All of this created a massive delay as we tried to manufacture and ship tens of thousands of products into the US. If we didn't launch these products soon, we wouldn't be able to pay our operations with 350 staff. And if we couldn't pay our staff, the entire operation would shut down. So I poured my personal assets into the company to try to increase its runway. In spite of delays, most of our clients understood what we were up against, but a few of them went legal, sending us demand letters and eventually lawsuits. Our legal costs spiked, which only accelerated the cash flow problem. In a Hail Mary moment, we tried to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which would give us a chance to reorganize, hold off lawsuits, and successfully build these stores. But the timeline we needed was too long, and our company had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And that brings me to lesson number 6. Realize that online criticism will only hurt you if you let it. Angry clients blasted us online, calling us everything under the sun. And the bankruptcy added fuel to the fire of this criticism. Listen, when people come after you, you need to make a decision. Will I choose to let this hurt me or make me stronger? If you allow what others say about you to control your behavior, you've already lost. Search the halls of history and see if you can find a single person who accomplished anything noteworthy who was not vehemently criticized. Steve Jobs, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Martin Luther, Galileo Galilei, Socrates. Do anything of significance, and someone will criticize you. This is the cost of leadership. And when it happens, consider that during Jesus' life, more hated him than loved him. And yet, he changed the course of history. 3,000 years ago, King Solomon wrote, "The fear of man brings a snare, but he who trusts in the Lord will be exalted." You see, fearing people is a trap. Don't give them that kind of power. But Seth, the person slandering me. So? But Seth, what they're saying is a lie. Okay. I need to defend myself. Yeah, that's what they hope you will do, and your reaction feeds their sick addiction to negativity. The only person on this planet who can make online criticism about you damaging to you is you. So when someone throws a brick at you, catch it, stack it, and use it to build a stronger foundation. Here's the funny part. We feel like the world is over if a few dozen people attack us online, but the reality is you are almost invisible. Think about it. Hardly anyone knows who you are. Hardly anyone knows who I am. Let's just say that 1 million online people know who you are. Seems like a lot of people, right? No, you're invisible. 1 million people is only 0.0121% of the total world population. That's 83 times less than 1%. So let's say that 1 million people do hate you, which I doubt. Does that silence you? Does that stop you? Of course not. Just go find 1 million other people who appreciate what you do and ignore the rest. How do you do that? Choose your topic of interest and serve people relentlessly. I want to let you in on a little secret. Between criticism and praise, praise has far more power to destroy your soul than criticism. Mankind is the closest to his own destruction when he is full of himself. Years ago, Charles Spurgeon put it this way: a sensible friend who will unsparingly criticize you from week to week will be a far greater blessing to you than 1,000 indiscriminating admirers, if you have sense enough to bear his treatment and grace enough to be thankful for it. Lesson number 7. It's okay to get knocked down. If you choose to get up again, you will rise stronger. I lost a $50 million company, but that loss ended up being one of the greatest gains of my life. Because through that loss, God reminded me that my worth does not come from my accomplishments, but from what he did for me at the hill of Golgotha. He was murdered so I could live. He was tortured so I could be forgiven. Only God can use tragedy so perfectly that it draws you closer to his side, gives you more grace, more wisdom, more understanding, and for that alone, I have eternal gratitude. When you realize the real battle is not the rise and fall and rise of your company or how well it's going, or even your physical health, or how your relationship with your wife is going. The real battle is what's going on the inside. When you realize that, you become so much stronger because everything that happens on the outside, you turn it inward to grow you from the inside. And when you view life this way, you only get stronger. When filing bankruptcy, the form asked me to enter amount of cash on hand. Now, I had no cash. My wallet was empty. And I was about to write 0 when my eyes fell on a dime sitting on my desk. So I wrote 10 cents. I was back to just 1 dime. But something unexpected happened in that moment. I had total clarity. I realized I can start over again. And you know what's cool? If this hadn't happened, I would not be here today teaching men of faith how to turn their expertise into a course and sell it for a lot of money while changing lives. By the way, if you are trying to build your own online course business, after a decade of selling courses and having trained over 10,000 students, dozens of whom are millionaires today, I took everything I learned and I put it into a single mini course for you. It is yours to consume as my way of saying thank you so much for supporting this channel. And to be 100% transparent, toward the end of that course, I will share my offer with you. And the best news, the course is 100% free. So click the link below if you want to take advantage of the mini course while it's still up. And may you never forget, you can change your life, even if all you have to start with is something as insignificant as just 1 dime.